Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Expats Exposed podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, I have a podcast called Expats Exposed, which you can find in major podcast streaming platforms. Just type Expats Exposed, and you'll find many episodes where I share stories about my experience living abroad, but I also interview or listen to other friends, people who live in different countries. So there are more than 30 episodes, so make sure to check it out after you watch this episode here. And please, on Spotify or any streaming platform, please give me 5 stars, add a comment on Spotify. This really helps me, and on YouTube, the same. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about some of these weird, strange habits that you experience when you move abroad, when you get to a new place, usually in the first few weeks, months that you are in this place, and even over a year, you still see these weird habits. And by weird here, I'm just saying something that is unusual, different from what you are used to back home, in a way. And the question is very it's open. Like it could be anything related to, I don't know, social behavior, bureaucracy, food, or these daily habits that sometimes I feel that they tend to tell more about a country than these huge traditions that you see, that you know about a country. Is these little habits that perhaps only when you live somewhere you start to see. Sometimes you adapt, sometimes the fact that it's weird just fades away after time, and other times they annoy you and they bother you. So what I decided to do was to send this question to some friends who live abroad. They answered these questions. I haven't heard any of their answers. I'm going to listen to their answers with you and comment on them. But before we get started, I just want to say quickly, if you don't know me, I am from Brazil. My name is Edu. I was born in Brazil. I lived in China. Now I live here in Colombia. I've visited more than 30 countries. And there were, especially China, there were some very strange habits that I would see there every day, and that especially in my first year in China, they were very different, exquisite. I don't know how to say, but I'm gonna mention more of these habits in China throughout the video, and also some habits here in Colombia. But the first thing that I noticed in China was the toilet there. They have a squat toilet. I think that's how you call it. So you gotta squat, put your 2 feet here, and there is usually a hole, a pan. So the first time I went to the toilet there, I think it was at the airport. Yeah, and I saw that. I was like, actually, it was not at the airport. At the airport, I think they had Western toilet at Beijing airport. It was in a restaurant the first time. It was my first night in China. The thing is, a lot of people know it's not only in China. In many Asian countries, they have this kind of toilet. But what a lot of people don't know is that at airports, in major, like bigger hotels, they have Western toilet as well. So I did have to use those toilets a few times, but in 5 years, I'd say less than 10 times, less than 5 times actually, because where I lived, I went there to teach English. So the school provided housing, and we would always have like Western toilet. And also when I traveled, I stayed in hotels which also had Western toilet. But the first time I saw that was very weird. Like in public toilets in Beijing as well, they have those kinds of toilets, and many times they don't even have a door. So yeah, it's very weird. The other thing that I remember, this is like my first week there, okay? Back in 2015. the other thing as well, the first time I saw it was how people spit in the streets there in China, and it's a normal thing. But it's not spitting like, it's spitting like Titanic, you know, the movie, when they are spitting like from the ship, like that. It's that kind of okay, I'm exaggerating, but it's kind of like that kind of spitting, and that was so weird when I saw it. So in the third habit, there are many different things that I saw in China, but I'd say the third one was the way they smoke in indoor spaces, and they don't even, especially or mostly men, I'd say, no women. Yeah, that's another thing as well. It would be hard to see in the streets like women smoking, but then men would be able to smoke like in so many places. Obviously, I lived in a very big city in China, Qingdao. Of course, there in many restaurants, closed spaces, you're not allowed to smoke, of course. But still, in many other places, also closed spaces, you were able to smoke. And then when I lived in a small town in China for 3 years, that was my last town there. When I say small, that's about 1 million people, okay? But that's really small for China, in the countryside. In this town, like even the guy who came to fix something in my apartment, in the bathroom, he just walked into the bathroom, squat, smoking, and they don't ask, you know. So obviously I know that China is huge, but if you go to still smaller towns and stuff, the smoking is, you know, it's just something normal. They do it everywhere, and especially men. So yeah, so these are just a few things. This is just to start the episode. There are a lot of other habits I want to mention, and not only talk about the habits, but I want to say like how these habits how they affected me and my friends when we listened to the audio, and also how after some time how I've changed my attitude towards these habits. So did they used to bother me and then they didn't anymore? Were they annoying and now they're part of my life? Do I reproduce any of these habits? So we're going to listen to some of my friends who sent audios, and the first one is Pavel. He is from Siberia, Russia, and he now lives here in South America. He's lived in Colombia, Peru. Now he lives in Santiago de Chile. So he kind of did the opposite that I did. Like what I did 10 years ago, I moved from South America to Asia. He came from Asia to South America. Let's listen to him first.
This was a really good question, and it took me a moment to think of the answer. And I thought of a couple of things. The first of all was that people are chill in Latin America. Less in Chile, more in Colombia and Peru. People are chill and relax. And they are sort of happy, I guess. They have the time to pause and enjoy their lives, unlike in Siberia. And in China, I guess, life is much more dynamic and stressing too. And the second one would be kissing. Yeah, people meet and greet each other and they kiss on the cheek. For me, it was not something new, but I didn't expect it to be as common as it is here. Yeah, people in Russia do kiss each other when they meet, but it's only when we're like really, really good friends.
It's really interesting to hear Pavel talking about like backwards. As I said, like I went to Asia, he moved here to Colombia, Peru, now in Chile, South America. And to see like, I took some notes. He first mentioned how people here are more chilled. He said that Colombia and Peru are more chilled than people in Chile. I've never been to Chile or Peru, but I've been to Uruguay, Argentina, of course, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Bolivia. And definitely yes, like I'd say that Argentina is the country I visited the most. Of course, I live in Colombia, but apart from Colombia, I've been 5 different times to Argentina, especially to Buenos Aires. The longest I spent there was 2 months and a half. And I can see the Latin vibe with Argentinians. I have friends there who are very similar, let's say, to Brazilians in many ways, not like Colombians. Colombians are even more similar to Brazilians in a way, physically, and also, in a way, more similar, like this friendly and vibrant lifestyle that I see here in Colombia that we also have in Brazil. But yeah, I could see that in Argentina, I could see that in Uruguay. So I understand exactly what he's saying. When he says chilled, some people, when they come here from Europe, from North America, they say that we are more laid back. We are more, we have a more chilled vibe in general. He mentioned we have time to pause and enjoy life. And this is one of the things here that I noticed in Colombia, in Bogota, the first few weeks that I was here, is that around 5 to 6 p.m. people would leave work and they would leave their office and stop at an OXXO. OXXO is one of those, I think, Mexican shops. They have it all over Bogota and all over Colombia. And they would stop there, buy a 6-pack, which is not expensive. It's somewhere between $4 to $6, I'd say. So yeah, so they would do that, and they would like leave work, have a drink with their friends, and then go and take the bus, and they would go home. But it's this more relaxed vibe, like, okay, I gotta work, but I can meet friends afterwards, but I can do something. And it's not that in London people don't stop at a pub before they go home. Obviously, I've seen that happening many times there, all the times that I've been to London, and I'm sure that they do the same thing in many other places. But it's the relaxed vibe. The you see people talking like they are, BFFs. It doesn't need to be planned. You can text someone and say, hey, want to meet up, want to do something. Of course, in a big city like Bogota, you got to plan a little bit, but still, this was one of the strange habits here, actually, before I forget. Sorry, it's not strange, it's just different in this case. But people love doing last minute things. They love just saying like, hey, let's go somewhere, or let's meet for a beer. Let's grab a coffee somewhere, like last minute, not planned. I finished work on Saturday around 2 p.m. And a lot of the times the teachers, when they finish at this time, that's when we finish the week. We got Sunday, Monday off. And that's when they tell me like, hey, who wants to go for lunch and stuff? And I know in Brazil, things could be like that, but I'm more of someone who, before I leave home on Saturday, I know where I'm going to have lunch, what I'm going to have for lunch, if I'm meeting someone, or if I'm going straight back home and having lunch, on my own. But that's something that happens here in Colombia as well. And maybe that's related to the chilled vibe that Pavel mentioned. He also mentioned that in China, life is more dynamic, more stressful. It's true. In China, people work a lot. That's also a habit I saw there when I lived there. I couldn't understand, just for you to have an idea, the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years, I'm not sure, but high school in China, when they're getting ready for the Gaokao, that it's their big, let's say, SAT, in a way, the students used to get to school, and this is public school, but most of the schools in China, like the vast majority, are like public schools. They used to get to school at 7:30 in the morning and only leave school at 9:10 p.m. They would have 2 hours and a half for lunch, so they would usually leave school, have lunch, take a nap. Taking a nap is really another habit in China that is really important. They would take a long nap and then come back to school and stay at school till 9, 10 p.m. They would only have off half Saturday and half of Sunday, so like 24 hours that they were off school every week. This is for the last 3 years of high school. It's a very competitive exam. I think it's the most competitive exam in the world. So this is life in China, and of course they usually they do homework at school. Like, it's not that they're having a different class every day. I mean, every all the time from morning, afternoon, evening. No, they would have classes mornings and afternoons, and then the evening would be like for self-study, but they had to be at school. So the other thing that Pavel mentioned was kissing on the cheek. He said that yes, in Russia this happens. It's not very common. It's only when it's a very close friend. But this is a strange habit. It was a strange habit for me when I went to Buenos Aires, because in Buenos Aires they have the Italian influence, of course. Men, when they're friends, they would kiss on the cheek. In Brazil, that doesn't happen. We shake hands, we hug a lot in Brazil. Here in Colombia as well, usually it's men, women, or women, women who kiss on the cheek. When it's man to man, we shake, we hug. So that's also a habit, like Pavel mentioned, kissing on the cheek. But even here in South America, in Argentina, it's different from Brazil when it comes to like kissing on the cheek. But yes, somebody coming from Asia would say that we here in South America are very touchy. We're hugging each other. And even kissing like on the lips. Like, you cannot see couples kissing in bars, on the streets, and I would never see this in China, like, ever. Even in China, like, public display of affection doesn't happen between couples there. I never saw. Okay, never. Maybe it's too much, but I don't remember seeing straight couples, holding hands or kissing. Holding hands, yes, especially young couples, but like married couples kissing or hugging each other more, that's not very common in China. So yeah, I can definitely see this difference. And another thing about China is the fact that, like, everything is about, like, I would see babies everywhere. This was the first impression I had when I went to the supermarket, when I went to the shopping mall. I would see kids everywhere, babies. And just, this is important information, in 2015 when I moved there, that's when they changed the law, the one-child policy. Now families could have 2 children. I think that right now they can actually have up to 3 kids. I'm not sure, but in 2015 when I got there was the year they changed for 2 kids, and I remember they were like pregnant women, kids, babies everywhere, and that's something that shocked me when I first arrived in China. Now we're gonna listen to Guilherme. He's from Brazil. He's in his mid-20s, and he moved He moved to Colombia, here to Bogota, 4 or 5 months ago. He's been living in Bogota and working as a Portuguese teacher here. So let's listen to Guilherme answering the same question.
Well, Colombia and Brazil are very similar when it comes to culture. I think culturally speaking, they're both, Colombia is very close to Brazil. But if there's one surprising thing I can mention is that technologically speaking, I think Brazil is more advanced, because when I got here, one thing that really shocked me is that some places do not accept credit card. I mean, if you go to, if you're in Bogota, which is the capital, of course, you can use your credit card pretty much everywhere. except for some locals and small stores that you walk into. For example, if you're going to buy souvenirs, or if you walk into a small store, for example, in a neighborhood which is not downtown, you might have to pay in cash. But I vividly remember that back in June, because I got here in May, and in June, I remember that I started, what's it called? I went to some small towns here in Colombia, which they call pueblitos. And I vividly remember that I would walk into some stores and people would not accept credit card. They would only accept cash. And this really shocked me because in Brazil, for example, we only use I have to say that we only use credit cards most of the time. I didn't have any cash in my wallet back when I used to live there. So I think this is one of the differences that we need to be aware of when it comes to going to another country. So yeah, this paying cash is definitely something that I would mention that really surprised me when I got here.
Yes, payment options. That is a very important point. And I'm gonna compare like China, Brazil, and Colombia. But before I do that, I want to mention the first thing he said, that Colombia and Brazil are very similar. And yes, it's true, as I already mentioned, Colombia and Brazil are obviously, it's a different language. Obviously, music genre is different. We barely listen to any music in Spanish in Brazil. So we don't listen to salsa, cumbia, and all of these popular genres here in Colombia. Of course, music is different. The cuisine is also different, but it's not a big difference as soon as you arrive here in Colombia when it comes to like people behaving on the streets, and when you meet new people, when you make friends. I'd say it's not a big of a difference compared to Brazil. Obviously, as Guilherme mentioned, like there are small towns, just like in Brazil, you got the really big cities and small towns. Of course, it's going to be a bit different, but in a way, yeah, it's very similar. But payment options, Guilherme mentioned that Brazil seems to be more advanced when it comes to like payment options. And he mentioned that in small towns here, sometimes, or in these local shops, not downtown, you would have to use cash. It is true, but they also have a different kind of payment, which is called Nequi Davi Plata, and now they have BREB, which you can do like online payment. And a lot of these shops, and even taxi drivers, and in Brazil, I don't know, I read it somewhere that the banking system in Brazil is very advanced and very modern compared to like other countries. And in Brazil, online payment is also something very common. Like apart from credit card, debit card, we have Pix, P-I-X, which it doesn't need to go through Visa or MasterCard. So that's why, what's the Facebook Meta guy? Mark Zuckerberg. That's why he's upset with Brazil, because when they launched online payment through WhatsApp, we already had Pix. We had just started with Pix. So basically you don't need to pay any interest, taxes with that we have to pay using debit or credit card. So that's a system that it's kind of like anywhere, you just scan the QR code and pay it. And it's been a while there in Brazil. Now, in China, when I got there in 2015, that's 10 years ago, they have the Chinese WhatsApp. It's called WeChat. And there's also another one that I forgot now, but they already had online payment in small shops, street markets, and anywhere basically. And I was shocked. That is something that shocked me in China. How I felt they were 10 years ahead of Brazil when I got there in 2015. Imagine now in 2026. So that is something that really shocked me. And that was a really good surprise when I got to China, and that was something so easy for them. speaking of technology, these are like the good surprises about China. The apps that they have for food delivery, like I've never seen anything so cheap, because you don't pay all like you don't tip, you don't pay all those taxes that we usually pay back here in the West, and it's so fast. Like, it's incredible how efficient food delivery apps are in China. Not only that, they have Taobao, which is their version of Amazon in China, and things get delivered so fast. And again, I'm talking about 10 years ago. Nowadays, I'm sure it's even faster, if it's even more efficient and very convenient. How these apps work in China. They have an app for everything, and that is very efficient. I'm not saying here, I don't know how much, they pay for the delivery people, for shipping and everything, but all I know is that it's very efficient. That was a really good surprise how digital China is. At the same time, when it comes to bureaucracy, to just open a bank account or to send money from China to Brazil, it was a headache, because I've never seen so many sheets of paper, so much red tape, and gosh, that was a nightmare every time I had to do something at the bank. Obviously, I had someone helping me translate, but still, it was a nightmare. Bureaucracy in China, they always need a red stamp for everything, and sometimes you need 3 red stamps. So yeah, that was a big shock there. And here in Colombia, as Guilherme said, it's not that different, but I'd say like the way beans, that's part of the cuisine of most countries in the Caribbean, in South America, and Latin America in general. You have all different kinds of beans. That was surprising in China when I got there, and I saw that they eat beans, but it's usually sweet. It's different. The beans here in Colombia, they have the beans that we use in Brazil, when we're cooking in Brazil, but it's still a bit different. So the most common bean in Colombia is different from the beans that I have in Brazil. It's not a big deal. I can cook. I make my own beans, but that's something that I got adapted to. Like, now I eat beans a lot. Arepas are very popular here in Colombia, just like in Venezuela and other countries. That is something that I had never eaten before. And now for me, it's just like, I really like arepas. I don't eat them every day, but yeah, like it's something that I got used to it. It's part of my diet as well. What else is really common here? Tamales as well. Oh, by the way, I'm talking about this, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the pictures, but on Spotify you can't. So I'm gonna write these words here in the description box, and then you can see and Google the dishes. And here in Colombia, the plat du jour, how they say it in French, or the dish of the day, the executive menu, how they say in many places, it usually comes with soup and juice. So that's what I had for lunch here at the mall today. It cost me around $4 to $5. $4. And it's really tasty. The food is fresh. I had rice, beans, pork, a salad. But it first comes a small bowl with soup and the dish, and then some juice, lemonade. So that is something that in Brazil we don't have soup as much, like with dishes every day. But that was a good surprise here in Colombia. Now I'm used to it. Like, I always, when I go for lunch, I'm expecting my small bowl of soup before the main dish. So yeah. Any other strange, weird habits, good surprises, bad surprises that you had somewhere when you traveled, visited a country, or you moved to a new country? Let me know in the comments here on Spotify or on YouTube. Please don't forget to hit the like button. Give me 5 stars on Spotify. This is really important. And I'll see you next time.